No, no, we'll come back. No, you know we'll come back. So that's what I'm telling you to. It's because of. I cannot come back here. So I'm not taking this. Let's go.
Your Excellencies, whenever the anthem of Nigeria is being sung, let's go, please. Please, gentlemen, let's go. Can we move, please? Let's go, gentlemen, please. Thank you. Please, you can just shift a little bit then from. Can't you see the way this one is doing? Let's go, please. That is the right thing to do. Thank you. That's all right. That's all right.
To extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you at our 66th annual conference that is taking place at our nation's capital. This gathering marks a historic milestone in the annals of our society, as it is the largest conference we have ever held. This conference draws over 2,000 delegates, including 500 students across Nigerian universities. Your presence here underscores the enduring advance of the NES as a beacon of intellectual rigor and policy innovation in Nigeria's economic landscape. I'm especially honored to recognize the esteemed personalities present on this occasion. We are deeply grateful to His Excellency, the Vice President. Thank you so very much, sir. You promised to come to support us, and you are here. We are grateful, sir. We are very grateful, sir. We also owe a great debt of gratitude to the honorable ministers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that are present here today, the governor of the Central Bank, and our indefatigable chairman, Dr. Usman. Thank you very much, sir. Your leadership and dedication to Nigeria's economic progress are a collective inspiration to all of us. The theme of this year's conference, Rethinking Africa's Development Pathways to Economic Transformation and Social Inclusion in a Changing Global Economic Landscape, could not be more timely. At a moment when Africa faces daunting challenges and unique opportunities in the global economy, this conference provides a platform for robust intellectual engagement, practical policy dialogue, and evidence-based recommendations that can guide Nigeria and other African countries in leading us towards a wider shared prosperity. Let me just say a little thing about the Nigerian Economic Society. The NES was founded in 1957 as a foremost professional body of economists in Nigeria. For nearly 7 decades, this society has served as the intellectual hub of the Nigerian economies, bringing together academics, policymakers, development practitioners, business leaders, and students with a shared commitment to advancing knowledge and shaping economic policy. Since its earliest days, the NES has been at the forefront of national economic debates, providing vital research, fostering dialogue, and shaping economic reforms. Over the years, the society has consistently engaged with governments, international development partners, and the private sector on issues ranging from macroeconomic management, fiscal and monetary policy, and industrialization to poverty alleviation, human capital development, and Nigeria's role in the global economy. The annual conference of the NES has become the largest and most respected economic policy gatherings in Nigeria, renowned for managing academic rigor with practical relevance. It serves as a platform where evidence-based research integrates with real-world policy making, and where the voices of established scholars combine with the fresh perspectives of young economists. Today, the NES acts as a bridge between research and policy, a center for mentoring the next generation of economists, and a trusted partner in Nigeria's pursuit of sustainable development and Africa's transformation. Pardon me, sir, to take a moment to reflect on the journey of our society over the last 2 years. Since assuming office as president, we have worked together with our council to reposition the Nigerian Economic Society as the leading voice in Nigeria's economic policy discourse. Among the landmark reforms and achievements in the last 2 years include establishment of 36 state chapters and FCT and in diaspora to ensure national outreach and grassroots engagements. We have challenged our state chapters to engage the state governors, to engage the state governments, in also economic discussions and economic policy making, so that the focus is not just on the federal level, that even at the state level, we can begin to have some robust discussions and engagement with the states. We have also created the NES Women's Wing and the Students' Wing, broadening inclusivity and representation. We have seen unprecedented growth in new membership, which has helped us to expand the vibrancy and intellectual diversity of the society. We've signed memoranda of understanding with local and international organizations, including the NESG, to deepen our collaborations and visibility. We have also regularly published an annual economic report to show the economist's perspective about developments in the economy and to also speak about the outlook of the Nigerian economy. We've launched digital innovations, including the NES mobile app, the NES Connect, the revamping of our websites and social media platforms, and the NES podcast, known as the Economic Jigsaw. We've re-engaged with stakeholders in both the public and private sectors to enhance our policy relevance. And we have started construction on our permanent secretariat that has laid fallow for over 20 years. And just as we've seen, we have produced also the NES anthem. These reforms have transformed the society into modern, inclusive, and globally connected professional body, while preserving our core identity as Nigeria's foremost economic think tank. This year's conference reflects the scale of our ambition. In the next 3 days, more than 300 scholarly papers will be presented across plenary and technical sessions, covering full spectrum of Nigeria's and Africa's economic development. These sessions promise to foster scholarly debates, innovative solutions, and collaborative pathways towards sustainable development. We are confident the output of this conference will not only enrich the discipline of economics, but also make a significant contribution to national policy discourse. Acknowledgements. We owe the success of the conference to the support and commitment of many. I want to especially acknowledge our distinguished sponsors and partners whose generosity has made the gathering possible. Our keynote speakers and panelists this year will be the Nobel laureate, one of the Nobel laureates in economics in 2024 will be speaking at this conference later. Our students and young scholars, the LOCs and the various committees, and more importantly, Your Excellency, the Vice President, for graciously agreeing to declare this conference open. Before I conclude the speech today, I would like to appeal to the Vice President and urge that the government should engage more with the Nigerian Economic Society. We are the experts of the Nigerian economy. We appeal to the Tinubu government to reinstate the President of the Nigerian Economic Society as a member of the economic management team, as was the case under President Yar'Adua and President Goodluck Jonathan. We believe we can make a significant contribution to the ongoing economic reforms. We recognize that the reforms of the past 2 years have stabilized our economy and repositioned it for sustainable growth. However, this reform must be complemented by adequate social investments and measures to shield the economy from deindustrialization and increase dependence on food imports. Additionally, we request that the key ministries, such as finance, budget and national planning, and trade, industry, trade and investment be designated as economic ministries with their leadership teams composed of individuals with sound economic training. As I draw this reflection to a close, let us pause to consider that Africa's development has long been framed through the images of not our choosing. Too often, the continent is depicted in the language of deficit, malnourished children in classrooms without roofs, farmers battling cracked soil under relentless drought, tired women standing in long queues for relief materials in other developed villages. These portrayals, endlessly recycled, are not merely pictures. They shape the assumptions of investors, the priorities of aid, and even the policy prescriptions offered to us. They confine Africa to the role of a problem to be managed rather than a partner in shaping the global future. But that is not true. That is not the true African story. Across the continent, we also see young entrepreneurs building digital platforms that connect millions, farmers adopting climate-smart methods that improve yields, and cities experimenting with renewable energy and sustainable housing. This is the Africa of possibility, an Africa that requires policies not of relief, but of reinvention, not of dependency, but of partnership. This Africa really makes the headlines, but it is the Africa that demands a new policy imagination, or the ones that also sees beyond crisis, response to long-term transformation, beyond dependency frameworks to agency and collaboration. In this spirit, we thought of the wisdom of Chinua Achebe, the renowned Nigerian novelist and prophetic voice, when he said, if you don't like someone's story, write your own. This is precisely what our team is all about. It's a high time that we reject the narratives of lack imposed on us to craft our own path and to chart the story of economic transformation led by African takers and doers. Your Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, friends, and partners, the Nigerian Economic Society is stronger, more vibrant, and more relevant today than ever before. Together, let us seize this moment to rethink, reshape, and reimage the African's economic future. On behalf of the Governing Council of the Nigerian Economic Society, I warmly welcome you once again and wish us fruitful deliberations. Thank you. God bless the Nigerian Economic Society, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Your Excellency, Mr. Vice President, welcome. Good morning, sir.
To hear, but since I know I can always, okay, the VP is encouraging me to address those issues, especially they arose from yesterday. Now, one of them was the issue of the state of the Nigerian economy itself currently, and the role that economists can play to help to address that. So I think one of the points I made in my contribution yesterday is, yes, the Nigerian economy is going through quite a number of challenges. We have been having them for years. There are attempts to address them with varying degrees of success. But how relevant can economists be in helping to address these issues? And I think that's the big question. I remember the days of the super pump sex, in the early days of the Nigerian Economic Society, in the 60s and 70s. No serious economic policy was undertaken in this country at that time without the input of the Nigerian Economic Society. So it's both an appeal, and I think the presence of the Vice President here, the Governor of the CBN, the Speaker of the House, should encourage us to say that at least those who matter are listening, and But it is for us also as economists, because while our economy is going through some challenges, the economics profession itself is going through some challenges. And we have to make ourselves much more relevant. And I gave the example yesterday of when I was appointed Minister of Finance, and I went to the National Assembly with a general equilibrium model of the Nigerian economy, trying to explain to them the implications of doing this on the budget and those, and they were just looking at me, this man is speaking grammar. You know, so how do we make ourselves more relevant? And the answer is to get back to those days when town and gown met and became relevant to Nigeria's economy. Many of those super pump stakes, about 3 or 4 of them, ended up becoming actually presidents of the Nigerian Economic Society. You know, Philip Asiodu is the only living one among them today. He was one of the super pump stakes, and he was a president of the Nigerian Economic Society. And people like Professor Phillips, Dr. Phillips, who actually were shuttling between the university and public service. And my experience as well, I was a teacher in the university. I've taught in several other universities part-time, but I found myself again in the private sector, in the public sector. And the difference is so clear. So I think what we are appealing is we need to institutionalize some arrangement whereby there is this feedback or interlocking between the academics and the public sector. And I'm sure Your Excellency, you can, your office will probably arrange that. Somebody also raised the question yesterday, why are not certain, and our president repeated it today, the president of the Nigerian Economic Society, why can't certain ministries or agencies in government be reserved for economists? Like you have the lawyers, you know, like the accountants. Well, again, for me, it's really, first of all, you can see, I can confirm to you that our vice president is an economist, the minister of budget and economic planning is an economist, Dr. Tokwe Kwashua is in government. There are several economists, the deputy governor and the CBN. So there are economists. I think the challenge really is, how do we institutionalize that arrangement as well? When I was setting up the performance management department in national planning as Minister of National Planning, I recruited 25 M&E experts from the private sector. You know, first-class people who are all working for the World Bank and other agencies. Today, where are they? There are just a few of them remaining, partly because of the structure of the civil service, you know? So again, how do we address that? And the last, sorry, again, I took opportunity of sitting next to the chairman of the House Committee on National Planning to raise an issue again that is of great concern to Nigeria, which is, why do we keep flip-flopping from one policy to another? And we don't have, like the Chinese, like the Indians, like the Malaysians, and so on, a plan that is institutionalized, that everybody accepts. And all happens is one government comes, modifies it, but it is the same plan. We have tried Vision 2010. I was part of the Vision 2010 effort. I led the effort to institutional Vision 2020. Now we have Vision, the 50-year plan. But I was reminding the representative of the speaker that I tried to even get that, you know, a law to be passed. We need that to say this is the Nigerian plan that every government must implement until we arrive at the destination that we are targeting for ourselves. Unfortunately, it was not approved, and I'm maybe taking advantage of the Honorable Minister here. We need, and luckily you are a senator, a former senator, we need to legislate those plans. My effort failed, I was not successful, and part of the reason was that they said I was from a, what is the expression that they use? An agency that doesn't have resources. I'm sure you all know what that means. Of course, even if I didn't have the resources, I was not going to use them in the way that people thought I should. But I didn't have the resources to push that piece of legislation, But certainly, Nigeria needs some form of, and I agree, and I plan that every government must adhere to. Of course, if it's a 20-year plan, you need to have 5-year amendments or adjustments as you go along. So I just thought I should make those 3 comments on an impromptu basis. But formally, to welcome the Vice President and thank you for the support that you have been given to the society. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now let's begin our recognition. Nasir Isiaka, Chairman, House Committee on National Planning and Economic Development. Thank you very much, sir.
Really appreciate the privilege of being here and to work with the Nigerian Economic Society in planning and implementing this very important conference. Let me also extend to you the warm greetings of the President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Sidi Ould Tah, and also the Chief Economist and Vice President of the bank, Professor Kevin Rama. They asked me to send their warm greetings to this conference. Let me also extend my very high gratitude to the government of Nigeria for supporting this event in this very beautiful city of Abuja, especially with the presence of His Excellency, the Vice President. I also express our profound appreciation to the Nigerian Economic Society for inviting the African Development Bank, particularly the African Development Institute, to co-host this very important conference. The African Development Bank is committed to the economic development of Africa, especially that of Nigeria. And the reason is because Nigeria occupies a strategic position in moving Africa forward. So we are very committed, and we realize that Nigeria can do a lot in moving the continent forward. And so we commend the government of Nigeria for the very bold reforms that they have been undertaken with a view to achieving this laudable objective. We're proud to co-host this milestone conference, which brings together some of the finest and brightest minds to reflect on Africa's development trajectory in a rapidly evolving global economic landscape. The theme of this year's conference, Rethinking Africa's Development, Pathways to Economic Transformation and Social Inclusion, is not only timely, but compelling. It speaks to the urgent need for Africa to recalibrate its development strategies in the face of multiple global disruptions that include climate change, geopolitical tensions, technological shifts, debt sustainability and vulnerabilities, and demographic transitions. This theme challenges us to move beyond the growth metrics and embrace inclusive transformation, one that uplifts the poor, that empowers the women and youth, and builds resilient institutions. This is what the African Development Bank is known for. Not just a hard infrastructure financing institution, but an institution that is responsible for building soft infrastructure in form of knowledge, in form of capacity, because we recognize that these are enablers of transformation. Some of the tools that we have developed at the African Development Bank to help achieve this objective include the strategic framework on key actions to achieve inclusive growth and sustainable development in Africa. We also recently developed the Public Service Delivery Index that helped to measure the progress that countries are making when it comes to the government's ability to provide the services that they need. We also have a number of academies: Public Financial Management Academy, Macroeconomic Policy Management Academy, and several other tools to assist countries, including Nigeria, to achieve structural and economic transformation. I want to appeal to all of us that these tools are at your disposal at no cost. We invite you to visit our knowledge and capacity development booth right out there when you have the time to familiarize yourself with some of these tools that will really help you in your day-to-day endeavor to achieve structural transformation and inclusive growth in our continent. And on the last day of this conference, you are also invited to a special policy dialogue session on the theme, Driving Africa's Economic Transformation in Transition States, the Role of Capacity Development and Knowledge Management. Participants from 22 African countries were invited to participate in this dialogue, and they are all here. So we look forward to your participation in this very important policy dialogue. So, as we rethink Africa's development together, we need to be bold. We also need to be visionary. So let us rethink how we invest in people, because these are the people, the women, the youth who represent the greatest assets of the continent. Let us rethink how we strengthen institutions, because transformation is impossible without capable and accountable governance. Let us rethink how we harness technology and innovation to leapfrog development constraints. Let us rethink how we promote regional integration to unlock economies of scale. And finally, let us rethink how we ensure social inclusion so that no one is left behind. The African Development Bank stands ready to work with all stakeholders, governments, academia, civil society, and the private sector to co-create society and to also ensure that we develop solutions that are African-owned, that are evidence-based, and that are future-proof. So once again, I commend the Nigerian Economic Society for its enduring commitment to advancing economic thought and policy in Nigeria and in Africa. Let us seize this moment and this opportunity to chart a new course for Africa, a course that is inclusive, a course that is resilient, and a course that is prosperous. So once again, I wish all of us a successful conference, and thank you once again for your kind attention.
Dr. Mohammed Sani Abdullahi, we need to say, just because in our midst, of course, we'll begin by recognizing and warmly welcoming His Excellency Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON.
Your Excellency, because of the impromptu remarks by the, I won't call him impromptu chairman, but the chairman for today, and with your permission, I would like to respond to two of them quickly, because maybe they can be helpful here. First, by mandate, the ministry has the responsibility and has been engaging with the Nigerian Economic Society. And we have even urged them that really we want more hands. We are in a heavy lifting phase, and we want the maximum support. So we are able, I'm not preempting what His Excellency the Vice President will say, but we are available. We even yesterday I called the Director Macro and said, it doesn't look like the Nigerian Economic Society is treating us as partners, because I believe this is a joint program. So the government is ready, and by mandate we have been instructed, and we have been doing that. Secondly, our legislating our national planning, we already have the necessary minimum, because Chapter 2 of our Constitution, Fundamental Objective and Directive Principle of State, literally made three major provisions that we are a constitutional market economy, we are a constitutional democracy, we are constitutional federalism. And the objectives and directive principles they contain the objectives, economic objectives for the nation, political objectives, environmental objectives, even the duties of citizens. Even the Section 16 specifically made mention of planning for a balanced economic growth. So maybe taking that constitutional provision, what many people particularly have been saying is that the chapter is not justiciable, which I thought is a red herring, because once the president or vice president or governor or deputy, or indeed all of us public officers that are appointed by them, once you swear to something, I think it's even morally wrong to take the argument that it is not justiciable, because the oath of office, which is in the Constitution, actually necessitates that you swear to uphold and seek the enforcement of the fundamental objectives and directive principles, which are the foundation of our planning. And last but not the least on that, the government, particularly the Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu-led government, have been very careful not to continue with the old practice of discarding what is there. The 2050 perspective plan, Agenda 50, is still what we have for the country. The 2021 to 2025 national development, which is the first of the 5-year plans, is expiring this year, and Mr. President and the National Economic Council have approved activities to ensure that we put in place the successful plan, which is 2026 to 2030, which certainly the Nigerian Economic Society is going to be part and parcel of. Equally, but of course, it will incorporate the priority areas of the renewed hope agenda. And so we are welcome to support us. We will send out letters to you and to all. But back to my 1 minute, Your Excellency. This is a very important, and especially where we are, as have already been said, in our economic journey. And we need the gown to retool so that they can support us. Just about 10 days ago, we were in Japan for the Tokyo International Conference on African Development. And just sitting there, one cannot help notice that Japan, with a land size of 377,000 square kilometers, is 1% of Africa's land mass. With population of 124 million, again, maybe 1%, less than 1% of African population. But Japan, the size of Japanese debt is 9 trillion. The size of the African debt market or federal government debt is less than 2 trillion. In fact, if one leaves Japan and come back to Europe, two countries, Italy, again with a land mass of less than 400,000 square kilometers, again less than 1%, or Spain with 500,000, again, all of them, and with population of 60 million, and then Italy, 50 million, Spain, 60 million, Italy. but both of them have debt which are bigger than the African debt. So maybe in part of rethinking social inclusion, the Minister of Livestock have just said we have to help retool and restructure syllabus and training so that we can really pinpoint what are we missing. Our experience as a country in the last 2 years of taking bold, difficult choices that were even risky by those who led because we're in a sub-region that people were even disaffected with democracy, but we took those choices to remove distortions, and we saw the value of the removal of those distortions in terms of governmental revenue, in terms of debt revenue to GDP ratio. But that can only go far. We have to create the mindset that we have to have better access to capital market in order to finance this inclusion and in order to finance this historic underinvestment that beset many countries in Africa. I'm sure the Vice President, maybe time will not permit, but he knows it better than everyone, because the Lake Chad problem, maybe if in terms of costing, and I'm inviting maybe research work, maybe it's a $50 billion challenge. If we can invest $50 billion, we can begin to recharge Lake Chad. So it's an underinvestment issue. The Sahelian issue, where a lot of populations are walking around with animals and search of water, illustrate the function of underinvestment. But being that we are not here for that, and I'm sorry, I'm not just speaking and I'm being given 1 minute, but since we are rethinking African development, we have to bring to attention that this whole consists of those who should lead the paradigm shift in drawing attention to what we must do differently and urgently. And luckily, they have the material because of what has been done in Nigeria in the last 2.5 years. I was in this hall the last time, and Patrick Lumumba, the Kenyan public, was here. And he was saying that so long as Nigeria's GDP is less than 10 trillion, Africans will not be happy, because Nigeria can be 10 trillion, and by God's grace, we have been given the charge, Nigeria will be $1 trillion by 2030, but you can see how other Africans are even thinking we should go. But we can't be tepid. And I believe, Your Excellency, that is the kind of message you need to charge this professional assembly of which you are a member, to introspect on the experience of the last 2 years and extrapolate what we must do to get Nigeria to a higher GDP and to get to Africa. And those paradigm shifting thought processes which should be inculcated in our students and at all levels of government. Even the partnership by NES should not restrict itself at the federal government level. It should be at the local government level. It should be at the state level as well as with the federal government level to the highest level. Your Excellency, I know I've taken too much time, with due respect. Last but not the least is to say that Mr. President and the Vice President and the National Economic Council have debated and put in place a renewed hope ward-based development program, which is designed to mobilize the 8,809 wards of this country that are uniquely blessed with different economic opportunities and with energetic, hard-working populace that can be mobilized. The Nigerian Economic Society is welcome to partner with us in that journey. Thank you, Excellency.
Nigerian Economic Society for 66th birthday
quite interesting, much older than the country, and have been a student of the society for a very, very long time, since my undergraduate days. And hardly a proceeding of this nature is done without you getting some of these very, very articulate and seminal presentations from erudite scholars and professors. Thank you very much. The Minister of Livestock Development is the youngest in the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and interestingly, it has not been created in the last 64 years until last year, when Mr. President had that strategic vision to create that ministry at the federal level. For 64 years, we have neglected, deliberately abandoned the livestock sector that has the base value of $32 billion. That society has been there. I don't know whether a lot of advocacy have been done to recognize that sector that has been in the informal sector for that long. It has huge potentials, can probably rival any sector of the economy you can think about if properly harnessed. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of talks. What we neglected was 58 million cattle, 124 million goats, 70 million sheep, 9.3 million pigs, 410,000 donkeys, 900,000 camels. These are the sources of our animal-based protein. Because of that neglect, today we spend $1.5 billion to import dairy and dairy products for 230 million Nigerians, and that is not even sufficient. Today, that sector has been unlocked, it's been unbundled, and we are here under the renewable agenda to transform that sector into a modern, vibrant, resilient, sustainable, and globally competitive sector. As of today, we have a potential to export $3.1 billion red meat to the Gulf states, and we are not anywhere near there. So the challenge here today is that we need brilliant ideas from this conference. How do we turn around this sector immediately for the benefit of Nigerians? Millions of Nigerians have been employed. Our animals are stunted because of lack of feed and fodder. Our countryside is riddled with a lot of crises, farmers, herders, community clashes, simply because we have failed in the last 64 years to transform that sector, to recognize the value of this sector. So we are here out looking for sustainable ideas, implementable ideas, practical ideas to connect the gown and the countryside to transform that sector for the benefit of this country and generations yet unborn. Remember, Nigerian Economic Society, our future is not in our hands. The future of this country is not in our hands. The future of Nigeria is in our land. How do we sweat it out? How do we turn all these potentials into realities? So that is the message, and here we are ready to partner, to listen, to dialogue, to talk to all these brilliant ideas and make sure that we have the opportunity to implement these transformative efforts of Mr. President by creating this ministry. I want to congratulate the Economic Society of Nigeria for convening this wonderful conference to talk about inclusion, transformation, and the development of the African country. The livestock sector today, I want to tell you, is the next crude oil after the crude oil. Thank you very much.
This is a gathering of the cream de la cream of the Nigerian economic family. And economists are perhaps the most uncomfortable of companions. They are the ones you had to confront when you are at war with your own reality. But they are also the ones you embrace when your actions align with truth. Economists may not be miracle workers, but what they practice is a science that no nation can afford to take for granted. We are here. We are growing And we are surviving because we have chosen, however imperfectly, to listen to you more than we listen to our fantasies. And so I join you today to acknowledge the depth of gratitude we owe this distinguished society. This edition of your annual gathering, where you rip apart the ideational complexities that govern our economy, from the struggles of the man on the street to the lofty abstractions of our macroeconomic rankings, is special to me. It comes at a time I am privileged to take my seat among you as a fellow of this society, to have witnessed in practice the trial of economic theories and their impact, to appel the weight of applying them as a policymaker, is to be reschooled in the discipline of economics beyond the walls of any classroom. It is to discover that theories are not merely tested on paper, they are tested on people, and every policy is a verdict on lives. This edition of your gathering continues your perpetual quest for answers. This year, we meet to rethink the strategies before Africa in a shifting global economic order. It could not have come at a better time. I must commend the President of the Nigerian Economic Society, Professor Adeola Adenikinju, and his team for challenging us to reflect on what decades of policy failures and vulnerabilities to global risks have created for Africa. I urge all participants to take their role in this conference, not as a scholarly exercise, but as a continental and national assignment, one expected to salvage Africa's economies from their fragile status. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we need not flog the dead horse that Africa has been left behind. While we are trapped in post-colonial realities and distracted by blame games, our peers in Asia and South America have been busy designing economies that serve as models for the world. Their stories teach us one lesson. Economics and politics are inseparable twins. Dysfunction in one invites chaos in the other. To be an excellent economist, therefore, is to master the application of context-specific solutions. Ours is not a pill of one size fits all. There's a reason many nations in Africa, where they are expanding populations at a badge of honor, while others count their progress in GDPs. It is because for so long, we have refused to do the right thing. We have ignored our economists, especially those who understand the nexus between politics and economics. A continent of 1.5 billion people should be a horror story to all of us. Worse still, inter-African trade makes up a mere 16% of our global trade volume. Indeed, we know why we are here. This is no accident. What many developing nations on this continent have attempted is to reap where they did not sow. The progressing world is reaping the benefits of planning, of foresight, of aligning with the shifting global economic order. You cannot adapt to change without the infrastructure to do so, and neither can you compete with the world if you lack the resources. The cruel joke of history is that we slept through the first, second, and third waves of the Industrial Revolution. But today, in the fourth Industrial Revolution, we stand at a peculiar crossroad. The opportunity to lay the foundation of our economic future while simultaneously building upon it. There may not be a shortcut, but there is a bridge to leapfrog Africa's development. The knowledge economy, for instance, has shattered the boundaries of reality as we knew it. It compels us to rethink productivity beyond its traditional definitions. We live in a world where a random citizen in Daura can outsource his services to a corporation in Dallas without seeing the inside of a plane or leaving his bedroom. But to catch up with this changing world, Africa must embrace structural transformation that embeds its human capital and reverse unemployment. Poverty must be confronted head-on, for the promise of this continent to be realized in the lives of our people. There is no justification for the low per capita income that afflicts our nations amid the resources at our disposal. There was a study done by Comperi, a global consultancy outfit, whereby it is projected that by 2035, there will be 65 million global talent deficits. The United States, Russia, and Brazil will each suffer from 6 million talent deficits. And what is the population of Nigeria? Hovering in the neighborhood of 230 to 250 million. And what is the average age of the Nigerian nation? It's 16.9. We are in a position to harness our youth bulge and transform them into demographic dividends instead of the much feared demographic disaster that is expected to consume all of us. India in 2024 earned over $100 billion from business process outsourcing alone. The highest we have ever earned from the process of oil was $25 billion in 2011 under the leadership of President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. Honestly, we have no business being poor, especially in this age of the post-industrial revolution. The time difference between Nigeria and Europe is plus or minus 2 hours. And there are more English speakers in Nigeria than in India. And with all due respect, I am not a racist, but I know my English is better than the average Indian English. So, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, hope springs eternal from the hearts of men and women. We have to harness our resources. But yes, we cannot hide from the reality. The threats ahead of us are real. Geopolitical conflicts, trade protectionism, supply chain disruptions, the energy transition, and the disruptive rise of artificial intelligence. They all paint a gloomy outlook, but each threat is also an opportunity in disguise. This is why a society such as ours exists, to light the path of a continent, even in the darkest night. This conference gives us an opportunity to rethink our development paradigms. Its theme provokes an all but unanswered question. Why are Africa's economic peers so far ahead of us in nearly every index of national development? The relevance and success of these days' deliberations will be measured by how boldly and honestly we engage this question. Nigeria is, of course, not exempt from Africa's economic tragedies, but our silver lining, Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, is the listening ear of His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Under his ebullient leadership, this administration has embarked on bold and inevitable reforms to address structural weaknesses that others before us only paid lip service to. These reforms testify to the power of political will in economic policy. Their painful but necessary consequences reminds us that a malignant disease can only be cured by painful surgery. The wounds are temporary, but the recovery is permanent. Our heart goes out to Nigerians. We know the pain they are going through, but the surgery is almost inevitable. The removal of petroleum subsidy, the alignment of the multiple exchange regimes, the new tax policy, the tax reforms. When we withdrew the fuel subsidy, we know the consequences of unveiling a masquerade. There was a former governor who narrated the story of his friend telling him that he is tired of making money. The fuel scam industry was a very big industry with humongous watches that can undermine any state. with the alignment of the multiple exchange rates regime, the opaqueness, while we were minting billionaires overnight. You don't need to go and engage in any productive activity. All you need is to know Dr. Sani Abdullahi Detijo, the deputy governor, for him to provide you with the apex. Do the round tripping and make billions overnight. All you need to do is to remit his own portion of the loot. But here we are, Nigerian companies, the Cadbury's, the Nestle's, the Indomie makers are now sourcing for their raw materials internally because it's much more cheaper to do. Let me cite you just one example. There is a company called Presco. A year ago, Presco's share was trading at about 300 to 400 naira. Presco's share grew by 247% in the past 12 months. And Presco posted a first quarter profit of 58 billion naira this year. That shows the results of the economic reforms. But we are not underlying the fact that things are hard. But believe me, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, no matter how long the night is, it must give way to the line of the dawn. Stormy the weather might well be, but it won't rain forever. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the roads may have been bumpy, but our steps are firm. Consistent quarterly GDP growth, improved fiscal space, growth in external reserves, decline in inflation, stabilized exchange rates, and steady expansion of our infrastructure stock are gradually restoring investor confidence in Nigeria's economy. This is what happens when economies are not sidelined. Economists are very active in this business of governance. Professor Adeni Kinju, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, is an economist. He holds BSc Economics from the University of London and MSc in Economics from the University of Sussex, England. The Minister of Budget and National Planning is almost a genius. I take delight in embarrassing him at every forum. He holds BSc Economics from Usmanu Danfodio University, MSc in Economics from the University of Jos, and MA in International Affairs from Columbia University in New York. So these are all members of the same ecosystem. Jumoke Oduole has been in the economic ecosystem for the past 15 years. Yes, she is a lawyer. She holds LLB from the University of Lagos, but she also holds LLM from Cambridge and a master's degree in international legal studies from Stanford. And to cap it all, she holds a PhD in international trade and development from Stanford. That makes her eminently qualified to be the Minister of Trade and Investment. But most importantly, Dr. Jumoke Oduole has been the special advisor to the President on the ease of doing business for 10 years before she was appointed the Minister of Trade and Investment. The gentleman seated here, who was reeling out figures on livestock development, is a square peg in a square hole. He's a practicing farmer. He read agriculture from the University of Maiduguri. So, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I crave for your indulgence to give us the benefit of the doubt. We are determined to redefine the meaning and concept of modern leadership. Things are tough, but tough times do not last forever, but tough people do. If Nigeria works, Africa works. If Nigeria fails, Africa has failed. 1 out of every 4 black men is a Nigerian. And by 2050, Nigeria will surpass the United States, will be the 3rd most populous nation on earth. And by the end of the century, when all of us here have become poor tenants in the home of the earthworms, Nigeria will be the most populous nation on earth. We have every reason to be proud, to be proudly Nigerian. You don't need a soothsayer to tell you that this is a Nigerian. When you meet a Nigerian along the street of London, he will not give way for the white man. He will walk majestically with confidence. We are a very swashbuckling, very proud. Yes, we are loud, so be it. But we are very confident people. I left Zenith Bank as a general manager. I became a commissioner. I did not step out of this country, not even to neighboring Chad or Niger or Cameroon, until I became a commissioner in 2007. Not that I couldn't afford to, but I never saw jumping into the same swimming pool with a white man as a rite of passage to the wall. I'm very confident. I'm very comfortable in my skin. I'm proudly Nigerian. And that's in the DNA of each and every one of us here. So we can make this country work. It's easy to criticize. It's easy to insult. But it's not easy to perform. I urge all of us to rally around each other to make this country work. And do not mistake me. We have never claimed this journey to be without storms. We have acknowledged the inflationary impact of our reforms and the spillovers from global crisis into our economy. But we are determined to do differently. What we are determined to do differently is never again to sideline our economic thinkers. This is why President Tinubu has remained committed to investment-friendly measures and social protection programs to cushion the vulnerable. Policies in transportation, healthcare, education, and agriculture have been deliberately targeted at reducing inequality because these are the sectors that affect the weakest amongst us. This is the mandate this conference has given us to find new pathways to solutions. The nation awaits your deliberations and recommendations. As the saying goes, if you sleep through the planting season, be prepared to harvest regret. I wish you fruitful deliberations and a rich crop of ideas for a nation in transition. With these remarks, it is my singular honor and privilege to cherish forever to declare this conference open. Thank you, and may God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Budgets of various states, you're welcome. SARS, Dr. Eric Ogulaya, Director, African Development Institute. Good morning, sir, and welcome. Welcome again, sir. We also have Director Generals and Chief Executive Officers of Government Ministries Department.